This is a Second Front podcast presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We have bellied up today. It's Valentine's Day. There's love in the air. And if you're single, there's happiness in the air, maybe for you, unless you're swiping right a lot today. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what people do when they're single nowadays, if you just swipe right to everything on a Valentine's Day. But if you're on a base somewhere, there's always somebody else single. And just like that, I'm going to introduce another Marine because that's what I do. Just before it's all over with, I'm going to start my own battalion of Marines that are just popping up on the show and doing things. But this is one that has infiltrated the Air Guard. And as I said on TikTok before the show, I wasn't sure if she was going to be able to make it on time. You know, she's now has the cushy life and she's doing all these, the cushy things that come with being in the chair force. But at her heart and at her core, she's still a Marine. So joining us from South Carolina, it's Miss Heather Burt.
Hello.
Hi, Heather. Told you there's no rhyme or reason how I do these introductions.
Okay. Well, thank you. So I'm getting feedback. Is that?
I'm getting no feedback on my.
Okay. If you're good, then all good.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not hearing anything. Is it? If you've got, do you have two speakers going or something like that? No.
No, we're
All
good
right.
now. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Look, I'd rather you tell me so we can try to figure it out now. But so Heather and I are going to be talking. She's got her website. If you want to check out her website as we're talking here, evolve.com. She's also got a new book that's getting ready to come out. She'll let us know when that's coming out about personal evolution. Is it evolution or evolution?
I say personal evolution.
All right, we'll go with evolution then. The 4 essential elements for navigating your life. But before we get into all that and we find out what Heather's got going on, let's go ahead and get some house cleaning done. As always, over my right shoulder, we got the big board for Sticker and a Cause. If you've got something you believe in, something you're supporting, maybe you've written a book recently, you've got your own podcast or band, I don't care what it is. Reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. I can't say Twitter, YouTube, X, Twitch, Instagram, whatever it is. They're all the Above the Bar podcasts. Reach out to me. Let me know what you've got going on. I'll let you know how to send me out the sticker. We'll let everybody know what you have. It's free for you, a little bit of advertising. Now, the other thing that we got to talk about is our sponsors, though, Heather. And if I'm seeing, it looks like you have faux wood blinds right there next to you. Is that what I see? Wood blinds?
Yes, you're correct.
Well, that's good because our sponsors are Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York. They are the largest window treatment company in the United States. They handle everything from drapery to shutters, faux wood, real wood, all types of window treatment. And for the month of February, Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York, are offering buy 2, get 1 free on your window treatments. So if you got a whole house you're looking to do and you're looking to save a little bit of money, reach out to Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie. Buy 2, get 1 free, and let them know you're there to belly up to the bar. All right, Heather, all the house cleaning is done. How's the weather down there in South Carolina?
It's actually pretty nice. We've had some good weather. I mean, we've had our spell of cold and rain, but not too bad.
It was 29 here today.
Oh,
do you know how much I miss the Carolinas?
But do you miss the sand fleas?
I don't miss sand fleas. I'm going to tell you a funny sand flea story. You've already got people popping up. You got Michael Collins saying, I'm so excited for this. I'm going to say somebody who's probably related to you, Summer Burt Davidson. Who's that? Is that mom, sister?
Sister.
It's hard to, I'm not picking on you, not saying you look old. I just can't see it's a little tiny picture. Just a little tiny picture. Yeah. Here, before we get too far, I'm going to tell you a funny sand flea story. So graduation, Paris Island. I graduated September 23rd, 1994. Okay. So it was like, and they wouldn't let us wear core frames. Our senior was like, no core frames for you. We wore the old, what they call broke dicks, wooden sole, leather, polish it up. It got so hot that the polish on our shoes melted and like they were looking dingy. That's how hot it was. But I'll never forget, to this day, I was 1994. I had a sand flea bite me on my chin, like right along that bone right there. And Heather, it bit me. I'm like third phase recruit. You can't phase me with anything. It bit me and it hurt so bad that I was like, ugh! Like we had a salute and I went, shoo, bang. And I was like, oh, my whole neck crinked up. It was bad. There's Miss Cody. So everybody's starting to pop up here, but I want to kind of get a little bit about your background. Oh, look, Miles is even out there. What's up, Miles? Get a little bit of your background. So you were in the Marine Corps from 96 to 2000, correct?
95 to 99.
95, 99. See, that's why we double check these things. So you did four years in the Marine Corps then, and you said you were an MP and a dog handler.
Correct.
So that means you went to school in Yuma, Arizona.
No, it was still in Alabama, Fort McClellan, before it shut down. Okay. I think we were one of the last. We were at the tail end of that.
Was that a BRAC base in Fort McClellan? Base
probably. Relocation? I know they're closed now. At least that was the last I knew. But I don't know if probably what it was.
That was during the Clinton era. They had the Base Relocation and Closure Act. That's how like Tustin got closed for us, for the Marine Corps. Yeah. So you went through there, and then you got stationed right back in beautiful Paradise Island, but over at the air station. I see.
Yes. That's why they say be careful what you wish for. Because I remember leaving Paris Island at like graduating boot camp, and I literally ran off the parade deck to get to the bus, to get to the airport, thinking, I just never want to come back here.
Never.
And I turned around and came back.
What was that like coming back? Especially as a young Marine.
Gosh. I guess, yeah, it was interesting. Fortunately, like I think there were 3 other classmates of mine that came with, so I at least had some familiar faces. I'm trying to think about. I don't remember. Like I remember leaving Paris Island and never wanting to come back, and then when I came back, I guess not that we're here to tell these stories, but when I first came back, I flew in. My classmates all flew into like Savannah, I think. I flew into the Hilton Head Airport, and at that time, like the Hilton Head Airport was nothing. Like it hardly existed. And I had the last flight of the night. I showed up, and everything was shutting down. And I knew I thought I had to be in my alphas to check in. And there was a security guard there that's like, well, he's like, I live in the Beaufort area. I'll give you a ride there if you want to. Because the taxi service would have been more than what I had on my person for money. And I remember getting in my alphas and telling him I'll be right out. And we go walking out into this back part of the airport. And he has this big old van, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm going to die.
I'm taking a van with a stranger in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah. That was my introduction coming back. But the interesting thing was, as we got to the gate, it's a bit of a drive from the Hilton Head Airport to the air station in Beaufort. And we pull up, and it didn't even cross my mind at the time, but we pretty much went right through the gate. Like they didn't really question him or anything. They just let us in, and he took me to the headquarters building and dropped me off.
Knew right where to go, huh?
He did. And at the time, like it wasn't registering, probably for obvious reasons.
Right.
Being a nervous young Marine, not knowing what's going on. And turned out he was the master sergeant in charge of crash fire rescue.
And he was like just pulling duty, like extra money or something.
Yeah, he just had a second job, and we stayed in contact after that. The first time he came through the gate, to the flight line, since Crash Fire Rescue is on the flight line. I was like, hey.
I know
So
you.
I know I was very fortunate. So
Yeah, that you definitely lucked out. But you know what? That kind of feeds into getting into your story and, because that wasn't the end of your career. You then moved on to, I was picking on you a little bit. That's what we do. Listen, folks, if you ever hear service members picking on each other, stay out of the conversation. You can't get involved. You're not going to understand. I've told this story 100 times. My grandfather used to call me a bellhop in the Marine Corps, like, because he said he was in the Navy. He's like, you guys are nothing but bellhops. You carry our bags. And I used to be like, Pop, you are driving a big gray taxi. Let's not be silly here. And that was our relationship. And we went back and forth that way. So it was one of those things. So then you go in the Air Guard. But when does all these things, I mean, we've got the yieldtoevolve.com, we've got the book, all this, how does, all of your life culminate moving forward into getting into talking about the 4 elements of evolving and getting into writing a book? How does all this begin?
I have to admit, while I understand this is an essential part of it, that journey is not, it's it's not always, I don't want to say it's not fun for me to tell people, but it's kind of a mess. Like that from point A to point B was, I wouldn't even call it, it's not just not a straight line. It's like a bunch of different scratched up lines and eraser marks, and it's really not pretty. But where I've ended up, I don't know. Can you ask a little bit more specific question? Because
Okay.
yeah, we could go all over the place.
Well, let's start with this. In your book, you say, I dedicate this book to my younger self. This is from someone who speaks your same language, but hopefully with a little bit more wisdom. Let's
Yeah.
start there. What's that wisdom that you've got that you say, hey, if I had that little bit more wisdom coming forward as you get to this journey, what does that look like?
That that looks like telling communicating to my younger self, I guess. What I'm saying when I was talking to my younger self is that, and the biggest message for Yield to Evolve, all of it, is there's no right way. There's no right way. There's no one way. And as crazy as it may sound, you cannot get it wrong. Like for all the things that happen in life and that we do in life, and we're like, that was bad, that was horrible, I messed up. And bad things happen, like terrible things happen. At the end of the day, you cannot get it wrong. You cannot get it wrong because like every time something happens or you mess up, all that is feedback. It's feedback and you get the choice to do something better. And for some of us, it takes a lot of lessons, a lot of, punches to the gut and roundhouse kicks to the head before we start to recognize that there isn't one way. I can choose to do it my way. It's just getting there.
So you begin that journey. You're making this story happen. When do you realize then that these elements exist? These elements of evolving. When do you realize, like, wait a sec, these are a thing, these exist?
Um, so the point at which they started to coalesce, I guess, I had been taking I had done a ton of certifications, like coaching certifications, classes. I'd done a lot of my own self-improvement things. And what started to come together for me was these were recurring themes. These 4 things were recurring themes in all of those. And part of it was doing all these trainings and reading all these books and like trying to figure out, how do I get it right? What's the answer? How do I get it right? Then it started to be like, it's not about getting it right. That whole cliche idea of it's about the journey, not the destination.
Mhm.
Like that started to become real. And for the longest time, I felt like that's kind of an infuriating, I don't know, because it's cliche. It's like, it's not about the destination, it's the journey. but it does become about the journey when it's an evolution, and you begin to realize that there is no place to get to. Yeah. And to be honest, when they did start coming together and I was thinking about writing a book, I thought I need to put this to a test. And I happened to have a copy of Deepak Chopra's 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And one of the things in my book that I say is there are no rules. And I feel like for a lot of people, that's just like, of course there's rules. How can there not be rules? And so I looked over and I saw the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, and here I am saying there's no rules. Well, when I went back through it and I read it, and there's a difference between what I think of as evolutionary law and the rules that I don't want to say the rules that we have created, probably often based out of evolutionary law, but there's a distinct difference there between an arbitrary rule and a law that governs how evolution unfolds. Am I making any sense?
No, you're making sense. So what I'm hearing from you, if I'm understanding, is, we sometimes say rules are this has to happen like this, whereas for the evolutionary rules, it's more like there has to be pieces to the pie. How they end up getting in there don't necessarily have to match every time. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and I think like part of it too is something like the law of karma. If whether you subscribe to that or not, it's more of a feedback system. And so when he says things like the law of karma or the law of least resistance in the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, is they aren't so much rules. Like karma's not a rule. It's just saying, hey, this is how it works. You're going to get feedback. The law of least resistance is, if you've ever noticed, like the harder you try to do something, often you end up getting less of a result, or not the result you were looking for. Like there's ways that the universe is constantly giving us feedback, and that's very different from saying there's a rule. When I think of, you can think of any rule. You can think of the culture that you were raised in, your religion, any of that says this is the one right way to do things. And then what happens when you bump up against one of those rules?
You end up realizing that maybe it isn't always the way everybody says it is.
Yeah.
And you can make some changes. No, I get that. That makes perfect sense to me. So
Okay.
you discover, so as you're discovering all these things with, and you kind of brought it up with your own upbringing, as you're discovering these things, were they counterintuitive to what you have been brought up teaching? Or, for, I don't got a better term, were you kind of in a little bit of a hippie household where like everybody's like, hey, or was this like, you're out here talking about like, hey, you can evolve and be free and see what's out there in your world, and your normal support system's like, knock it off there, buttercup. Let's get back here. Get back in this box. How was it?
I have to say, I am probably one of the most fortunate people in the world. This is a humongous shout out to the women in my family, especially my mother, my grandmother, my mom's mother, some of my aunts, my sister. I have the most amazing, and that's actually, that's my Aunt Janie right there. I have the most amazing family, because that is one of the things I think growing up, my mother was so amazing at creating the container for me without trying to control me. And I feel like now as an adult, I realize that's where I really push against. And I feel that when there's too much control, I push against it. And my mother was just absolutely brilliant. I don't know. Like I say she's not sticky, and I don't know how to describe this other than you meet people that they have an agenda and they're really rigid and things have to be a certain way. And if you say something to them, like there's a lot of energy there and a lot of emotional static. And my mom just wasn't sticky. Like she could roll with things so easily. And so she didn't create that friction that you often have between parents and children. And so, no, like to answer your question, no, I didn't grow up in a household like that. Yeah, we went to church. Yeah, there was structure. There were expectations. But the coolest part was my sister and I are like super opposite. And we're amazingly close, but we're super opposite. But my mother, not just my mother, my stepdad, my stepmom, my whole family. It was just the right context that I think I was allowed to be me, and that set me up really well. As I came into my young adult years, I derailed. I was missing some parts maybe in there, but I had a really good foundation, and I think that's what has allowed me to come full circle might be strong. I'm probably haven't quite closed the circle yet, but
The loop isn't done yet.
not yet, no.
Now I got it. So you've said some stuff that I got to get some answers here for that. So if you bucked against what I'm hearing, you kind of bucked against authority, didn't like those things. Why on God's green earth? Not only did you join the Marine Corps, you then go and be an MP, and then when you're out, you go back into another branch of service. Help me to understand, because to me that's like being like, man, do I hate to draw? Can I get a pen and a piece of paper? Like, it just doesn't make no sense.
A little bit.
Help me out there.
So for one, I don't know if somebody subscribes to this or not. I am a Gemini. There might be something to that. The dual.
Help me to understand. If Cody's still listening, Cody would be the only person that I know that could explain it to me. So I don't know. You have to explain it to me.
So in astrology, Gemini are the twins,
okay,
Castor and Pollux. And so there's kind of like, I don't want to say two personalities, but there's kind of like these polarities. And I do feel like I exist kind of within those polarities. And now that I'm older, I feel like I understand it a little better. Okay, I'm going to start probably sounding like a weirdo to you. This is where my weirdo's going to come out.
Hold on. Let me pause you for a second. And I do hope Cody's listening. At one point in time, we had a guy on who wrote a book about near-death experiences, who had never had a near-death experience. And then by the time that episode was over, we were talking about lizard people and was Jesus a lizard person? Like, it had just completely derailed. So, and Michael, I know you're throwing some stuff out there, brother. I don't know if you're throwing, putting out like shapes or stuff like that, but it's not popping up on this end, just an FYI. So I promise you, if they're cool, thank you. I just can't see them. So go ahead, give it a shot. I'm listening. You're not going to sound like a weirdo to me.
Okay, this is my personal internal experience.
Okay,
is that that it's unlimited. I'm closing my eyes because it's a feeling experience for me.
okay,
like it's expansive and it's unlimited, and I get that. Again, this is counterintuitive. Like, I don't like the idea of labels. Yes, I'm a Marine, but I'm also an airman, and I'm also very feminine, but I keep my hair short, and like I feel like I live within these dualities. And so there's this part of me that's just like out of control. But I kind of like the structure of the military, because it's like the string on a balloon or the string on a kite. It creates a structure that allows me to have movement without being too, not out of control. I mean, I've never been like out of control.
okay.
But it just gives a degree of structure to my life that I think makes it feel safe and allows me to have that internal experience of unlimitedness, if that's a word, but still being grounded.
I will approve it. I will approve it as a word.
Okay. Thank you.
Great thing. It's my show. I can use any word I want to. I'm perfectly fine with it. So it's almost like you bucked against that so much when you were younger, and you can tell us about that experience that you say you kind of derailed. You bucked against that so much that you went towards it as kind of like, I need to see it and understand it more. Does that make sense? That's the way I'm hearing it. Like almost like, I don't like this. I don't want to deal with this, but I'm going to go to it to understand it more, to see if it's it or me.
I don't know. Like, for as long as I can remember when I was young, my ultimate goal was to go into the FBI. Like, that's what I wanted to do, was be in the FBI, be in law enforcement. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go into the military. I'm going to get the GI Bill. Then I'm going to go to school and I'm going to have this background. So I'll be a shoo-in, hopefully, to get in the FBI. Well, once I was an MP and got a taste of law enforcement, I was like, wow, I kind of suck at law enforcement. I probably shouldn't do this for the rest of my life. I'm not. And my intention behind being in law enforcement was I wanted to help people. Like, I wanted to help people. But of course, you get into law enforcement and you are helping people. And there's a lot of amazing people in law enforcement out there. And I love that community still. But you're in a lot of conflict with people. And I'm not. Conflict is not, I don't want to say it's not my nature, but it's at one of the extremes. It's like, and my poor soon-to-be ex-husband would explain this. It's like I can push and push. I can get pushed and pushed and pushed, but at a certain point, there's a breaking point, and it goes from nothing to flat out ugly, like below the belt, no holds barred, ugly. And so it's like I don't do conflict well. So I kind of stayed to the other end of it.
I get it. Now, all those things make sense to me. So how does all that look, watch how I do this. How does that all evolve? See how I did that? I worked it all right in there. How does that all evolve into, obviously the website came first, yield2evolve.com. And folks, if you're just kind of popping in right now to the live, or you're interested and you've been listening for a little bit, the website, if you want to see what Heather's got going on, is yield2evolve.com. You can see everything she's got going on there. She does have a Facebook page also, which is yield2evolve 2. So you can check out those things that she's got going on. But the website came first, and then you obviously got into writing the book. But I'm curious, like I said, how does the website come to be? Because in my mind, again, I'm staying with, I've got my back to, Gunnery Sergeant Murphy cap on, and one of my Marines comes in and goes, and I know you weren't in the Marine Corps when you created it, obviously, but I don't think we had much for an internet back then, but that really wasn't a thing. But here it is, you're like, you're doing this. How was that reception even within, let's start with that. How's the reception within your command when people hear like, oh, she's got this book and she's got this website and she's telling people how to evolve as a person and growth, which can be very counter. I think it's right in line with what we do, because that's why we go to boot camp, to no longer be who we are, to be evolved into a new person. That's why we stick around and do the things we do, is to evolve as a person. I see it personally, but I can also see where, other people could be like, that's just a bunch of hippie crap, knock it off. What's the reception been like?
Well, I haven't told you what I do now. And I'm actually in the Air Force Reserves now. Like I said, the path there is not a straight line. I'm actually in the Air Force Reserves.
So Air Force Reserve, does that mean you have to bring your own bag chair? Is that how that works? Like you have to bring your own? They don't have one for you all the time?
The Reserves is part of the federal government, so they provide it for me.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not state government. It's
You're a blast, Heather. I love it.
Actually, though, what I'm doing now in the Air Force Reserves is I'm a religious affairs, or what would traditionally be called chaplain's assistant. And so,
like an RP.
What?
RP? That was the
RP?
Navy. So the Navy, the Navy has RPs. That was the guys that used to walk around with the chaplain, because the chaplain couldn't carry a firearm. The RPs carried it for him.
Yep, precisely. Yep.
Nice.
And that's what I do now. And I have to say, I like being in this space. One, my unit is amazing. Like, I leave my drill weekends exhausted because we're so busy. But for as crazy as it sounds, I leave my drill weekends just in love with my unit. I love my unit. But what it's allowing me to do is actually get to serve more in the way that I intended when I originally went into the Marine Corps as an MP. I wanted to serve that way, but now I'm still working on it. I wouldn't say that I'm just like like have all the answers for everybody or anything. Like probably not at all. It's more almost for my own personal growth still, to understand what that's like to show up for somebody when they're in a vulnerable position. Yeah, so that's what I do now. It's a little bit different than what I did before. So
That's
everybody's
no,
kind of
that's
okay with it.
no, I love it. Like, because what that, you know what? Honestly, that shows growth. It really shows a level of growth to go from, again, that MP mindset. Like you said, it's a rigid mindset of like the rules say here, here, and here. Whereas I'm a pretty faith-based person. I make it to church every Sunday. I listen to my Bible verses every morning. I'm that guy. But a lot of that, is here's where you need to get to. How you get to it is your journey. So that makes perfect sense to me.
Absolutely.
There's rules. The rule says this is where you got to get to, but it's almost like the old phrase in the service, commander's intent. I need you to be a good person. I need you to be accepting. I need you to be this. How you achieve that, I don't care. But I need you to be that.
Yeah.
Is that long? Am I on the right path?
Absolutely. And one of the visuals I like to hold in my head is so often in life, like if if I were to think, or if I were to create an image of like what God is, this like is the totality of everything. And each of us is an expression of the divine, all part of this. And we'll say at the center of that is pure being, pure essence. And we're all these little extensions kind of coming off of that. And somebody over here makes a connection with the divine, and they go, oh my gosh, I have it, I have the answer, I found the way. And they're pointing and saying, this is the way, this is the way. And this person over here is going, oh, so I need to go over here. It doesn't work that way. The way to the divine is through that personal journey. That's the only way. Because when you start and following somebody else's journey, you're getting off your own path. You can look over there and say, oh, I like what he's doing or what she's doing. How do I apply that in my own life? But so often what the world asks us to do is somebody says, I figured it out, I have the answer, follow me. This is how you do it right. That's doing it wrong. And the minute we start following that thing that's external to us, we get off our own path, and then we start getting lost.
Absolutely. And I agree with Michael. He just sent you a heart. 100% I'm with that. And as you were saying it, the first thing that came to mind to me was Jesus said, I am the way, I am the light. So it's nobody else's way. There's only one. He showed you how to do it. That's the way. So I see this. I'm all in. This is where I get all in, because I'm definitely, and I'm always, I was telling someone the other day, I think when I think about like what you're doing in chaplains, and I think about my own path, I'm definitely not your typical like guy where everybody's like, you go to church every Sunday. Yeah, every Sunday. I don't why. But I also had a chaplain. You'll appreciate this. My first chaplain on deployment was a Catholic chaplain who, now this is the rumor mill. You know how that works. You know how the rumor mill works.
Yeah.
The rumor always was that before he became a chaplain in the Navy, and this was in 94, he was a Marine recon in Vietnam. And guys were like, you know that about, I'm like, what? And you could almost buy into it, because guys would come up to him and be like, I need to go home. Could you send me home? Could you tell him to, out on deployment? And he would be like, listen, Marine, where's your wife at? I know somebody out there, but you know what? We got a war to fight. You should go ahead and get back here in Iraq, and you'll be all right. Like, he would just be like very suck it up, buttercup, get on about your business. That I love it. So, I mean, so you've definitely added to, a faith-based spiritual life. And I think there's a difference. Personally, I think there's a difference. You could say, oh, I live a faith-based life that says, hey, it's Lenten season, so on Friday, I'm only going to eat fish. I'm not going to eat red meat. I put ashes on my forehead. Or you could be a spiritual life where you're like, I can feel all the energy flowing through me. Look at this. Like, You know what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
like thank
It's
thank
all of it.
but you have found the best of both worlds. You see it. And I actually just had somebody tell me the other day that they were like, God is the energy all around us. That's how that's how God can create and do and be, and we can all understand because God is that energy that surrounds us and is in us and how we're able to be part of each other's lives. And I love that fact. So, but but God helped you write this book. So let's get into this for a second. So
Okay.
we have our 4 elements of evolution. And
Yes.
let's make sure in those 4 elements, what are our 4 elements? Because I'm trying to scroll and remember.
Well, they're awareness, forgiveness, vision, and surrender. But I have to honestly say, before any of those, like, I think more than at least half, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe half the book is kind of the lead up into that, talking about adopting an evolutionary mindset. And that's the foundation. And honestly, if somebody wanted to, if they were just like, I'm going to just adopt an evolutionary mindset, and the 4 elements kind of confuse me, I'm not going to use those, that would be fine. That mental switch between thinking there's a right way and a wrong way, or I'm not here to get it right, I'm here to grow as a person. And just by looking at life like that, when you start bumping up against things, instead of like coming to judgment and you're going, wait a second, what's here for me, you're going to evolve. The minute you engage that mindset and you disengage from the duality of right and wrong, you start changing. And I feel like, yeah, that's probably a pretty lofty claim, but I feel like it's true. Um, and so then if you're like, okay, well, if there's not a right and wrong, how do I navigate this if there's not a right and wrong? That's where the 4 elements of evolution come in. And the idea is cultivating awareness, practicing forgiveness, living from a vision, and leaning into surrender. And as we practice awareness, the idea is to set the intention to create awareness. Because so often, well, our conditioning puts blinders on us and it's like, this is right, this is how I operate, and we can't see outside of that. So you set the intention to say, I'm going to cultivate awareness. And I don't know if you had a chance to read all of the book or if you just kind of glanced at it.
I skimmed it. I ain't gonna lie.
That's fine. No, you're fine. Because one of the quotes that I reference, and it's not even a formal quote, but I went to a retreat of Dr. Joe Dispenza's, and he said, just kind of, it was kind of a remark in passing. It wasn't even like one of the main things, but he said, become aware of what you're unaware of. And actually, like, it totally infuriated me because I'm like, how do you become aware of what you're unaware of? Like, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. But the minute you start asking that, the minute you have that intention, it's like, oh, and you start paying attention and you start dropping into that, stuff starts to change. And then you go with a curious mind. That's the opposite, kind of the opposite of having a judgmental mind. When you're curious, you can still be discerning. You can still make decisions to protect yourself, but you're like, okay, what's here for me? Okay, you set the stage for receptivity when you're curious. And so you have awareness working kind of all the time. And then the idea of forgiveness, tell me when you want me to stop.
No, go. Get at it.
And I have to say, I'm going to give a shout out. I apologize, I don't remember his name. He was your last guest.
My last guest on here was, well, my last guest was actually a young lady. Or was it Michael Sinquist before then?
He had the business. He had been in prison.
Oh, no, that was you would say that here. I know who you're talking about. He had 9 felons, and I know exactly who you're talking about, and my brain's not working.
Okay,
give me half heartbeat and I'll tell you exactly who it was. Not Michelle, not Michael. It was not Paul. Maybe it was Michael W. No, it wasn't Michael W. Allison. It wasn't Allison. It wasn't Matt Frank.
I guess I had your podcast.
Scott Allen Curry.
Okay. Sorry. I must not have been looking at your podcast in order. I thought I was looking at them in order.
What? Dare you?
No, but like I was listening to him, and the thing that's so fun to me is it's like all of these elements, they show up everywhere. They're just kind of framed a little different. But he was talking about that, the whole idea that when he went to prison, he didn't adopt, what did he say? He didn't adopt
I
like a
am.
prisoner mindset.
He said, I am. He said, I would never say that I am a prisoner. I am a felon. He said, I'm not going to say I am that, which was huge to me because do you remember what God said to Moses when he asked what God's name was? Do you
I
remember
am
that?
that I am.
That I was 100%, we were on the same page. Because yes.
But he also said, who do you say that I am?
Right. He is who you say that he is. Just like
Well,
ourselves.
yeah. Yeah. Who am I claiming to be? And that's the whole idea behind, in my mind, that's what forgiveness is. It's an identity crisis. We have an experience in life and we have an emotional response to it. And we begin to identify based on the emotion instead of taking the emotion as feedback and saying, you do something terrible and you feel terrible. And normally we go, oh, I'm terrible, I'm bad. And we make that statement, I am bad. And that becomes our reality. Forgiveness isn't saying it didn't happen, because it did. Forgiveness isn't saying maybe, you need to take some precautions, move away from a bad or dangerous situation. Maybe you have to do some penance for it, spend some time in jail. But forgiveness is saying, who am I? And making that deliberate choice and letting that go, letting that identity go, saying, I did that. I got the feedback. It felt terrible. And in that, the only reason this is my opinion, the only reason you have a bad feeling isn't because you are bad. It's because you're good and you're getting the feedback telling you you're not. Because when you think of a sociopath, they don't feel bad when they do something bad.
You have an actual understanding, and I'm going to send my niece to come see you. She's in Savannah, so she's in Savannah. She can come. You guys, and she has a very. Well, I'll explain it to you later. I can't. I love her. She's good people. She's probably watching. I love it when she comes up and visits us. So, all right. So that's the cultivating the awareness and practicing the forgiveness. Now, living from a vision.
That's where you're headed. The forgiveness is letting go of an identity that's not serving you, and your vision is, where am I going?
Okay. So say it again. Say that again. So
forgiveness is letting go of an identity that's not serving you.
Okay.
And your vision is shooting your azimuth, taking your compass, shooting your azimuth, and saying, this is the direction I want to go. That's where I was. It didn't work. This is the direction I want to go. And there's two parts to vision. There's the material world part. I want to have the car. I want to have the spouse. I want to have, I wish I could tell you what page it's on, but you might be able to find it quickly. There's early on in it. It's in the front part of it.
Give me a word. What word am I looking for?
Front sight post.
Front sight post. Here we go. Here we are. So when using open sights, yep, I remember reading this. Is the front sight post the end of the barrel, the projectile exit? The front sight post is where you place your focus, making the small post as clear as your eyes will allow you, centering it along the rear sight. You know what's funny? As I read this, it made so much sense to me. Focus on what's in front of you and dealing what's in front of you. You will eventually reach your goal. That's the way I took it.
And that is a big part of it. I don't know if that's exactly how I meant it, but yes, that's correct. I maintain the way I'm presenting it is the idea that the material world that we're aiming at, the car, the spouse, the house, whatever, the degree, all the money, that's all the target. That's all the physical world. When you're actually aiming at a target, and maybe you remember this from marksmanship training, if you're aiming and your focus is on the target, you hit all around it. You chase the target, you hit all around it. When your front sight post is clear, you're more likely to hit a bullseye depending on your other marksmanship skills. But that front sight post is you. That's the part of you that's saying, who am I? The wealthy person is wealthy because they have a wealth mindset. You hear about people winning the lottery and they lose it all because that's not who they are. And so you aim at the target. The target is back there. I want all of those things. But then you have to start thinking in terms of, well, who's the person that lives that life? And then you start filling in that gap. You bring awareness in and you fill in that gap between forgiving an identity that's not serving you and moving towards an identity that's working for you. And you become that front sight post. You're the pivot point between where you are and where you're going. It's you.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. And folks, we're getting pretty close here. We're going to be closing the bar up soon. So I want to definitely keep moving through this. But that made perfect sense. So I see, I did read that. See, I read that part. I knew that.
I'm sure you saw the image and were like, hey.
I know exactly what that is. Anybody got any sight black? Mine, good. Who's got the pot? Who's got the pot with all the smoke? My niece wants to know, where can I buy this book? I'd like at least 2.
Amazon. It's on Amazon.
And again, if you're wondering what the title of the book is, folks, the title of the book is Personal Evolution: 4 Essential Elements for Navigating Your Life. And it's got a very nifty, kind of like a Volkswagen Bug kind of thing going on.
The hippy dippy part.
It's the hippy dippy bus. And it's Heather M. Burt.
Yes.
Is the see, I could see Ailey, I could definitely see you reading this. This is right up your alley. I tried teaching her how to play like my favorite board game, which is Cash Flow. It's a whole nother thing. It's like, it's Robert Kiyosaki. You know, Robert, he wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. He was a Marine.
Oh.
Yeah, Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay. I know that title.
So now we're getting into, and folks, look, again, we're just hitting the wave tops to these ideas. We're not digging into really understanding and acknowledging all this. So now it's about surrendering leaning into surrender. I almost said surrendering your life, leaning into surrender. What does that mean?
So the idea behind leaning into surrender is the fact that we can't control everything. We simply don't have control of everything. Other people are doing other things. We're going to bump into them. Life, it happens. I had a lot of difficulty initially around the idea of surrender. Like I even read Michael Singer's Surrender Experiment. And it just it didn't set well because it felt a lot like the way I was interpreting it at the time felt like giving up. But I think the trick to surrender, at least for me, is it's not about giving up. It's about being present with what is and just saying, okay, this is what is. Because so often we waste our energy railing against what we don't want. And sorry, my brain just kind of glitched.
Railing against the things we don't want.
Yeah. But the only reason my brain glitched is because I was thinking, yeah, I was doing that just the other day. I still do all of this stuff.
Well, that's the whole thing. But you know what? You bring up a great point. A lot of people think that, well, she wrote a book and she has a website. She has it all figured out. No, you have a blueprint and an understanding that you're willing to share and provide to other people. But it's a work in progress. We're all work in progress. There is no got to the end. I've got this figured out. No, that's when you're dead. That's when you're dead. There's hey, I guess that I don't get to make any more changes to this element. I love this path in this pathway. Where are some of the places that, other than, obviously I would think that in your day-to-day, when you're at your, your reserve weekends and things like that, you're trying to present this to some folks. Where else are you presenting this to folks? And what has the reception been?
Well, I have to admit, the reason I wrote a book is because I actually don't do that well just talking. I haven't created a talking structure that well. The book is the message. And the other part of that is the book, to me, it's not the answer for anyone. I feel like what I would love to see, now that the book has been published, is actually available, I'm going to reach back out to some of the coaching communities that I'm in, because I'd rather see coaches using the framework, because this is what I would tell somebody, is this is just a framework. This is not an answer. So if you can kind of hold this loosely in one hand and then use that vision part, what is it that you want to do? It does not matter what it is. It doesn't have to be spiritual growth. You can say, I want to do Muay Thai. I want to paint houses. I want to, whatever it is you want to do. It doesn't even have to be spiritual. You take that thing and start doing it, and you bring in the idea of an evolutionary mindset and using the 4 elements if you need to. And that's what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. It literally doesn't matter what you do. If you need a framework other than getting it right, getting it wrong, here's a framework for that. I have a couple other people that I intend to connect with to share about the 4 elements. And I will, if I can entice them into a conversation like this, then I will definitely be sharing that. I don't know.
Okay, who is it? Who are we trying to entice? Tell us now. Tell us now. And look, I don't have a huge, monstrous, like Joe Rogan audience, but they're big enough that they'll send them messages. We'll see if we can send some messages.
Okay,
who we want to talk to.
We'll see. Well, one of them is Dr. Rao with the Rao Institute. Dr. Sri Kumar Rao. I don't know if anybody would know him. I think he's a brilliant man, and I love the work that he does. And I would love to introduce this to him as something that he could use.
RAWL?
Nope, RAO, and it's SRIKUMAR. Dr. Sri Kumar Rao. But then there's actually also Richard Rudd, who wrote the Gene Keys. I don't know. That's it's not human design. It's different than human design, but he wrote the book on the Gene Keys. And there's a lot, I don't want to say there's a lot of similarities. Like the Gene Keys is huge. Like if somebody were to say, like, how do I figure life out? Somebody could say, read the Gene Keys. But if you're not into the Gene Keys, it's not going to do you any good. That's why it's important to pick what entices you.
Now, Gene, is that similar to what's the one I recently learned about? Gosh, I forgot the term where we're all actually wired that if we're around people of a certain nature, you could have nothing. Like you could not like basketball, know nothing about basketball, but if I set you down and you spent nothing but time around basketball players, you will something neurons. They're mirrored neurons.
Oh, neuron. No, actually, I will do my best to explain this. I am not somebody, I'm just reading the Gene Keys books. I do want to say thanks, Shane. He was just up there on your screen. He said he's going to use the 4.
That Shane Michael Collins?
Yes.
Oh, so
Shane.
You're also Shane.
Yes.
Shane Michael Collins? Like,
yes.
We're going to go full on Irish like Sean Patrick Murphy.
Yeah, he
Shane
is.
Michael Collins. There's Patrick. There's one of my mentors.
Yes. Okay.
See, he's.
So I need to Google.
So Patrick was just on last week, and we were talking about when Patrick was on. Gosh, servant leadership.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be one I'm going to have to Google.
Yep. We were talking about servant leadership. Patrick would love to talk to you about those things. He is amazing.
That's kind of an Irish name too, isn't it?
Oh yeah. He's another one. Patrick Michael Donahue. Listen, Shane Michael Collins, Patrick Michael Donahue. We're like a bottle of Telemar Dew and, a soccer game from, all of us being in trouble. We're just getting right into it. We're all there. But now, so I want to kind of, because we're getting close to the end.
Yeah.
There's all these people you want to communicate with. I would love to do what I can to connect you to my audience. If you know how to connect any of those people, just send a copy of Heather's book. Go get it on Amazon. Go download it. Do everything you got to go. There's my aunt Eileen. Aunt Eileen, I got to tell you something. The second batch was way better than the first. Well, look, she understands.
Let's see, that's an insight.
She understands completely. Wait till I do the third one. I doubled the first one. I'm going to double the second one she understands. But is the thing when you fully retire, you'll understand completely. Rusty.
Now I'm intrigued.
I'll tell you after the show. But as you're moving forward in this journey, there's those people. What is your, and we all have to have some kind of a goal. That's how our brains work. Even once you achieve that goal, that next goal helps you to set up the plans for the next goal after that. what is our first goal with the book and with the yield to evolve.com? And again, folks, that's yield with the number 2 evolve.com. What's our next goal with that, all that?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna blow that out of the water because there's no goal.
None?
Yeah, it's what you want.
What do
Like,
you want though?
oh, what do I want?
Yes, you.
What do I want? Oh, it's big. I want a free humanity. That's what I want.
Oh, that sounds really deep. That was very deep. A free humanity. I don't know what that means. But Shane Michael Collins would like to know, is there a link for the book we can use on LinkedIn? You're not on LinkedIn.
I am.
I couldn't find you.
I am. I'll connect with you. I know where you are on LinkedIn. I think I'm following you on LinkedIn. So I'll find you.
Look, you even got a gold heart from my niece. So now I don't know, real quick here, because we have to do something that is very important. Nate's not here. Nate normally, we figured it out. This is episode 223. I don't know where Nate's at. Him and I will have to have a conversation. If Nate was here, he would ask you about a favorite in meals. And he does this to every single one of us who have ever served. Nate never served. So I'm going to ask Nate's question for him, which is, what is your favorite MRE and why? Come on. We all got a favorite.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
How about, can I opt for a bag nasty instead?
Range bag nasty or fast line bag nasty?
Range bag.
Range bags are great because you got the eggs in there and everything, but you have no
I
business.
just know there was a sandwich that I could actually eat.
But you didn't have a favorite MRE, like for me, it was beef. I loved beef stew, especially if I could trade for jalapeno cheese and somebody's crackers and heat that thing up and then mix it all together with the Tabasco. Come on now. I
suppose if there were things out of it that I would eat, like the scalloped potatoes were usually pretty good. I could eat the scalloped potatoes out of them.
4 fingers of
big
death.
ask.
How about the 4 fingers of death? The Frankfurters? Do you ever have those?
Actually, I don't know that I did. Because that sounds kind of gross. And the eggs were really disgusting. I think there was an omelet or something.
Yes,
that was
the first MRE ever handed to me, was omelet with ham. See, we had the original dark brown bags long before these ones today that have heaters in them and they're ready to go. We had that dark, nasty brown bag that was like, this is rough. No, I'm with you. So there wasn't there wasn't like a, hey, at least
there were a couple of pasta ones that were okay. I remember the scallop potatoes because even the crackers and cheese, I know people love those. Yeah, that was the peanut. I think there was peanut butter sometimes in them. I eat the peanut butter.
Well, I do peanut butter. I bet my children, because I have MRE still here at the house. I bet my children all the time, like, I'll give you both of these crackers if you can eat both of these crackers without any water. You got 2 minutes, kid. And they're like, I could do it. I'm like, sure you could. Never been done. Like, just straight up, like having shellac, just like eating straight up wall putty. Ugh. So, well, here we go.
Much.
Oh, it's gross. It's absolutely good. Well, look, folks, again, I'm going to say it one more time. Check out what Heather's got going on at yield2evolve.com. Check out her book. It's on Amazon. Check out everything she's got going on. Is there any audible versions of the book? Just curious.
Not yet. Nope.
Not yet. That's good for people like me. But the book, again, is Personal Evolution: 4 Essential Elements for Navigating Your Life. My niece says, I only had the brown or dark green MRE. I had no favorites. I had to eat them. Not in the military, though. I can only imagine, sweetheart. I know your dad, her dad makes some of the best soups I've ever had. But one other thing here, folks. Look, if you're finding me through Heather or Heather through me, it's going to sound cliche, but go to Yield to Evolve, give it a like, give it a share, go find it on Facebook. Make sure everybody knows about it. That's how Heather's message gets out and grows. If you're finding me through Heather, well, guess what? It's the same thing over here. Taking the time, like, what?
There's 5 seconds, but I want to say, even if you don't like my page,
this is my show. I can do whatever I want.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, even if you don't like my page, if you start doing these things and you start evolving, that's the whole thing. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And the more people who start doing that, that's where change happens. You can like my page. That would be great and fantastic. And I would love that. But if you start to change, the world starts to change, because we can't separate ourselves from the world. We keep pointing to the world and asking it to change, but it can't change until we change.
So look, I love it. We're good. And remember, it's my show. I can do whatever I want to do. Okay. We can stay a couple extra minutes. No one's going to kick me off, I promise.
Okay.
But again, folks, making sure you're doing that, taking a moment, going on to my Facebook, going on to her Facebook, liking, sharing, going into giving a 5-star rating on any of these things. I know it sounds cliche. I know your kids are watching all these videos and Cocomelon and everything else. And they're like, share, subscribe. But guess what? They figured it out. We all got to figure it out. That's how this works. Summer says, loved this. Shane says, excellent presentation. I loved it. I will be following your podcast. Thank you, Heather, for an amazing time. Shane Michael, thank you so much. And then again, from your sister, sounds like the 4 elements can be used for anything. That's what I'm seeing it as. And again, folks, if this is your first time, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can always find us here. Next week, we have Sammy Bennett on. We're going to be talking about her book called The Upside Down Forest, Fables on Trauma Recovery. So that should be pretty interesting. So we're going to be talking about that. Now, again, we don't log off on me here, Heather. We got to talk for a moment after the show. But as you should know, I know you told me you binged all 222 episodes. And Janan, it says, a beautiful interview. I love your closing remarks. We got one more remark, so stay with us. So I know you binged all 222 episodes. It was so much. It was confusing to you. It was just so much content. I understand that. But you should know at the end of every episode, the guest always gets the final word. So what's our final word tonight, Heather?
Just one?
Whatever you want it to be. It can be whatever you need it to be. It's your final word.
Evolve.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.